If you're new to our channel, we'd love to have you join our little community. Just hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We promise it'll be worth your while. And if you don't believe us, just ask Marty Griffin, who was practically glowing with joy. He had just married Shauna Taylor, a woman he considered nothing short of a goddess. He stood beside her, equal in height but unequal in every other way he could think of. He couldn't quite figure out what she saw in him, what hidden magic she detected in his ordinary self. But there was one thing he knew without question. He would do anything for her. Anything. Her sister Tamara, the lone sibling, had served as the maid of honor. Shauna was demanding, yes, but Tamara was another level altogether. Where Shauna's requests came with a gentle tug, Tamara's arrived with the force of a command. She barked orders at everyone and expected them to be carried out with military precision. Marty tried to reassure himself that perhaps if he spent more time around Tamara, he'd find she wasn't so fearsome. She even kissed him on the cheek after the wedding and welcomed him to the family. That brief softness gave him hope. Maybe she wasn't so bad after all. The honeymoon felt like a dream wrapped in sunlight and champagne. But that first night, as they lay in bed beneath the canopy of soft hotel lighting and the distant sound of waves, Shauna turned to him with an unusual request. Her voice was both hesitant and firm, a strange mix of vulnerability and demand. She explained that she had been cheated on by 3 previous boyfriends, and that fear had nested deep in her psyche, like a stubborn bird refusing to leave. "I want to feel certain," she said, her eyes fixed on his, "that you will never cheat on me, that you won't even consider the possibility." Marty, caught somewhere between confusion and devotion, assured her he would never stray, not for any reason. He loved her, and for him, that was enough. But for Shauna, enough wasn't always enough. "All I ask," she said softly, "is that you wear my underwear, my panties, just privately. No one will see it. But it will help me believe. I'll know you're not someone who could just drop his pants for anyone." Marty hesitated, flustered by the request. It felt absurd, illogical. But the look in her eyes, the seriousness, the old wounds hiding behind her words, those things chipped away at his reservations. In the end, love often looks like compromise. He agreed. The next day, they toured the city like any honeymoon couple, hands entwined, laughter trailing in their wake. That was until Shauna spotted a lingerie boutique. She beamed and practically dragged him inside. Marty shuffled behind her, already feeling awkward, trying not to make eye contact with the sales assistant. Once inside, Shauna didn't hesitate. She picked out a dozen panties, lacy, delicate, feminine to the extreme. When Marty gently protested, pointing out that they were far too frilly, she cut him off. "I don't want anything that could be mistaken for men's underwear," she said. That was that. And what could he say? He had no defense left. Her reasoning, as odd as it was, had a logic to it that Marty couldn't unravel. Soon it became routine. Once back from the honeymoon, he slipped on her chosen underwear each morning as casually as brushing his teeth. It became his new normal, and oddly, it didn't feel as unnatural as he expected. That is, until Tamara came over one evening while he was cleaning the house. Tamara arrived without warning, slipping into the space as if she belonged there. They chatted, her more than him, until Shauna came home from a shopping trip. The 2 sisters embraced and began talking in the living room while Marty returned to scrubbing and sweeping. Tamara glanced at him and then at Shauna, smiling slyly. "He makes an excellent wife," she said. "I hate cleaning, and he's really good at it, much better than I would be." Shauna smiled back and, with a slight edge of pride, added, "He'll do anything I ask. He's a real dear." Tamara seemed to ponder that for a moment before suggesting, "Maybe I could borrow him this Saturday to clean my house. I'll pay him for it." Shauna agreed immediately, saying she could persuade him, and when she asked, flashing that soft smile she knew always disarmed him, he couldn't say no. He rarely could. Saturday morning arrived with a cool breeze and a knot in Marty's stomach. He wasn't sure why he was nervous. Maybe it was Tamara's sharpness, or the way she seemed to look at him like she was measuring his worth. But he went anyway. She greeted him at the door and offered coffee, telling him plainly, "I'm not a house cleaner, but I want a clean house. I hope you'll do a fantastic job." He told her he'd try, that he didn't mind cleaning. She handed him an apron, long, ruffled, almost theatrical in its femininity. He tried to decline, saying he didn't need it. She didn't blink. "You'll wear it," she said. "I don't want your clothes dirty." She tied it herself, pulling the bow tight. Then she stepped back, admired her work, and sent him off to clean. The apron tangled at his knees, making it awkward to move, but Marty worked through the discomfort. He started in the living room, which soon looked like a photo from a glossy magazine. Then he tackled the kitchen. When he asked for a mop, she smirked. "I don't have one. You'll have to do it on your hands and knees." She brought him a bucket and rags, watching with amused satisfaction as he scrubbed. When lunchtime came, she asked him to make toasted cheese sandwiches. He complied. She praised his effort again and, mid-lunch, said with a tone that mixed mockery and sincerity, "You should dress more like a housewife. You do an even better job." Marty brushed it off. He didn't see how appearance changed performance, but she insisted, "I'm your boss. You're being paid. You'll look the part next week." He wanted to argue, but what would it achieve? He nodded reluctantly. The rest of the day passed in a blur of chores. He changed bed linens, scrubbed bathrooms, grilled steaks, made salads, and loaded the dishwasher. 12 hours vanished in domestic duty. At the end of it, she handed him $100. He was stunned. Tamara smirked. "You earned it." When he got home, Shauna asked how it went. He was tired, worn down, and slightly embarrassed, but he admitted Tamara wasn't as bad as he feared. "Pushy," he said, "but not all the time." Shauna beamed. "I'm so glad you two are getting along." The next Saturday, Marty found himself heading back to Tamara's place. This time, her tone was different, more directive, more confident. She led him to a bedroom where a dress, slip, and undergarments were laid out. He drew a hard line. "I'm not wearing that." She raised an eyebrow. "Oh, yes, you are. I'm your employer. I decide the uniform." She showed him a picture of a 1950s housewife, fully made up, vacuuming in high heels and pearls. "That's the look," she said. "Classic, feminine, proper." He tried to resist, but she was unrelenting. She grabbed his shirt, threatening to tear it off if he didn't comply. "You can fight me, but you'll lose. Either you wear this, or you go home with nothing." Eventually, worn down and afraid of how far she'd push, he agreed. She stripped him of his clothes, down to the underwear Shauna had asked him to wear. When she saw the panties, she burst into laughter. "This just completes the outfit," she said, shaking her head. She pulled a rubber girdle up his legs, fitted him with stockings, hooked them with garters, and dressed him in a bra filled with large breast forms. A pink dress with lace followed, buttoned up the back and locked with a clasp. 6-inch heels went on next, unsteady but somehow fitting. Then she took him to her vanity and began the transformation. Foundation, eyeshadow, eyeliner, lipstick, the works. She topped it all with a wig and ribbon. When he saw himself in the mirror, he was stunned, not just by how much he looked like a woman, but by how complete it felt. Disturbing, yes, but also eerily convincing. By now, it was nearly noon, and Tamara reminded him he had a house to clean and laundry to do. She guided him to the laundry room, demonstrating her washer and sending him off to begin. As he moved through her home in stockings and heels, she watched from the table drinking milk, smiling to herself at the sway of his hips. It amused her, pleased her even, how he moved, how he obeyed. He hung laundry on the line, relieved to see her privacy fence. His calves ached. The heels bit into his feet, but he continued. In the kitchen, in the bedrooms, back to the laundry. It became rhythm. It became routine. They ate lunch, just soup and a sandwich. Tamara commented on how lovely he looked, even suggesting modeling. "I know people," she said, only half joking. He declined, mortified. She giggled, clearly entertained by the game. He folded laundry, returned clothes to drawers, continued cleaning. By 3 p.m., he was done with the bedrooms. He poured coffee and took a break. That's when Shauna walked in. She froze. Her eyes scanned him. Heels, makeup, dress, wig, the works. "What in the world are you wearing?" she asked, anger simmering just beneath the surface. Marty stumbled to explain. "It was Tamara. She made me. She said I had to look the part." Tamara chimed in, unbothered. "Doesn't he look cute? I think he should dress like this all the time." Shauna wasn't laughing. She turned to her sister with steely resolve. "If you want him dressed like that next week, that's fine. But I'm taking the clothes he came in." And with that, Marty was caught. Caught between sisters, between roles, between expectations. Marty stood frozen, the tray still in his trembling hands, as the room buzzed with the tension left in the wake of Shauna's departure. The sound of her heels clicking across the floor had long since faded, but their echo reverberated through him like the slow collapse of something sacred. He set the tray down slowly, as if the clink of porcelain might shatter the fragile edge he now stood upon. Turning back toward Tamara, he could feel the heat of humiliation burn in his face. This surreal costume of lace, ribbons, and perfume felt suddenly heavier now that it had been witnessed. Her laughter had stopped, but a certain smugness still hung at the corners of her lips. He gathered his thoughts the best he could, and with all the composure he could muster, told her he was leaving. He had to try to repair the damage. No more cleaning. No more playing house. He needed his marriage back. The walk home was quiet, deliberate, haunted. Each footstep echoed like a question. Would Shauna ever look at him the same way again? He had been willing to do anything for her, but had he gone too far? The dress clung to his body like a symbol of surrender, the wig brushing his cheeks like a cruel reminder of his obedience. When he finally stepped into their home, Shauna's wide-eyed surprise was written all over her face. But there was no yelling, no rage, just that terrible, terrible silence that left him chasing words in his own mouth. He started to explain before she even asked. Her sister, he said, had cornered him, threatened him, forced him. He had not volunteered for this. He had done it all, every frill and every humiliating moment, because he thought if he didn't, he'd be letting her down. He reminded Shauna of how he'd always feared Tamara, always felt that edge of something unspoken in her demeanor. But until now, he hadn't known what she was capable of. And now he was afraid not just of Tamara, but of how Shauna would see him. She stood in the middle of the living room, arms crossed, lips pressed tightly together. When she finally spoke, her voice had a curious gentleness to it. She didn't need to call Tamara to confirm his story, she said. She believed him. She could see it in his eyes, the shame, the bewilderment, the need for her understanding. "You can change now," she told him. Relief surged through him like a wave until he reached for the shoes and realized something was wrong. The heels weren't just tight. They were locked, secured with tiny latches that clicked into place and now refused to click out. He showed her, pointing out the nearly invisible locks near the ankles. She called Tamara. The answer was as infuriating as it was surreal. She had the key, yes. But Marty would only get it if he returned to finish the day's cleaning. Otherwise, he could wear them home or wait until she was ready to release him. The terms weren't open for negotiation. And so, in silence and mounting resignation, he returned. He walked back to Tamara's with every step reminding him of the absurdity of his predicament. Heels that ached, a dress that clung, and the knowledge that all of this was not just happening to him, but being orchestrated for him. He didn't say a word when she opened the door. He simply returned to the tasks left undone, polishing and scrubbing and folding with quiet precision. He didn't look at her. He didn't argue. By 8 o'clock, he had finished, and with his voice barely above a whisper, he said the only words he'd spoken to her since returning. "The cleaning is done. Now unlock the shoes." She did. She handed over the key, almost proudly, before stepping away to get money to pay him. He declined. She insisted. He took it without looking at her. "You won't see me next week," he said sharply, and walked out. Back at home, Shauna was waiting, her eyes searching his as he entered. She asked how it went, and he told her, truthfully and without embellishment. He had gone in, cleaned, and asked for the shoes to be unlocked. Nothing more, nothing less. He handed her the key, then asked her to help him unfasten the clasp of the dress. She tried, but discovered something chilling, a small lock near his neck, one that her key couldn't open. She called Tamara again. The voice on the other end was calm, almost amused. "That lock is special," Tamara explained. "Steel cable reinforced. You won't cut it. You won't break it. You'll get the key under one condition. He keeps cleaning my house every Saturday, and he wears a dress while doing it." Shauna was stunned. Marty was devastated. But in the quiet afterward, as he sat on their bed in a dress he couldn't remove, Shauna did something unexpected. She didn't cry, she didn't shout. Instead, she comforted him. She promised him she'd find a way out of it, that this was temporary, that she wouldn't let Tamara control them forever. And yet, Sunday morning arrived, and Marty was still in the dress, still locked in place, still trapped in the strange web his life had become. As he got out of bed for a bathroom break, he sat in quiet thought. This bizarre new reality was his life now, at least for the foreseeable future. He rifled through Shauna's things until he found a pair of flats. They fit well enough. As he brushed the wig in the mirror, Shauna awoke, watching him from their bed with something like admiration. "Good morning," he said. "Morning," she replied. Over breakfast, they didn't talk about the dress. Instead, they talked about chores, about the day ahead. "Might as well clean," he said, "since I'm already dressed for it." Shauna smiled and nodded, but her eyes were full of questions she hadn't yet asked. Later that morning, the doorbell rang. Shauna answered it, and there was Tamara. Unexpected, uninvited, but not unprepared. "My date was a flop," Tamara said casually, "so I came back early." Shauna let her in, suspicious but polite. Tamara wasted no time. "Marty does a fantastic job cleaning," she said. "I don't want to lose him." Then she added something else. "He looks wonderful in a dress. I think you should keep him in them. Full time. Think about it. No woman would ever want him like this. You'd never have to worry." Shauna tried to push back, insisting she didn't see any benefit in feminizing him. But Tamara pressed harder. "What if you had complete control? What if he only wore what you told him to? Did only what you allowed? You'd have everything. Power, devotion, safety. Doesn't that sound like something you want?" Shauna hesitated. "I'm not afraid of control," she said, "but I don't need him feminized to have it." Tamara smirked. "We'll see. He's already in a dress. Why not keep him there?" Then she dropped one final twist into the conversation. "The makeup I used on him, it lasts a week. Doesn't wash off with soap or remover. It's high-end, waterproof, sweatproof. So now he can either go out as a man, with makeup, or keep wearing dresses." His choice, Shauna stared at her, stunned. Tamara leaned back with satisfaction. "Want me to explain it to him? I think he'll understand better if I do." Shauna went to fetch Marty, who was still cleaning the bathroom. When she found him, she took his hand and gently said, "There's something you need to hear. Please come to the living room." He didn't want to. He didn't want to see Tamara ever again. But for Shauna, he agreed. He walked in, offering Tamara a glare that could have set wood on fire. She explained it all, The makeup, the longevity, the fact that for the next week he would look like this, regardless of what he wore. "So," she said finally, "will you wear men's clothes and look like a man in makeup? Or a dress and look natural?" He didn't answer right away. The silence stretched thin, like thread pulled tight. Eventually, he turned to Shauna. "Are you okay with this?" She smiled softly. "No matter what you wear, you're mine." And just like that, a choice was made, or rather, the illusion of choice accepted. Tamara, ever eager, offered to help. She'd buy him a week's worth of outfits. "I'll even make sure they match your makeup," she added with a wink. And so they went shopping, Shauna, Marty, and the ever-persistent Tamara. They bought dresses, lingerie, stockings, shoes with heels that climbed like ladders, jewelry that sparkled and clinked like surrender. At one point, Tamara even handed him a box, a peace offering, she called it. Inside was a women's watch, a necklace, and a bracelet, all in elegant silver tones. Marty thanked her, confused and grateful and utterly disoriented. Back at home, they unpacked their purchases. Shauna admired the silk gowns, some too elegant for housework, clearly meant for evenings out. Marty was overwhelmed. The heels, the fabrics, the sudden shift from reluctant participation to this. Yet somewhere in the chaos, something strange began to settle. He began to adapt, not in surrender, but in survival. Maybe, just maybe, he could live through this and still come out whole. The morning sun crept through the sheer curtains, casting silken lines of light across the room, illuminating the fresh stack of dresses and delicate underthings now folded neatly in drawers that had once been Marty's alone. His new wardrobe sparkled with the same unsettling duality that had begun to weave itself into his daily rhythm, a mix of rebellion and surrender, disorientation and strange, accidental comfort. There, nestled between lace and satin, was something unspoken taking root in him, a curiosity, an openness, maybe even a sliver of pleasure, though he wasn't ready to name it. Shauna had picked out the navy blue dress for his first day at work in full attire, a soft, flowing piece with white lace trim and a wide collar that gave it the charm of a bygone era. With practiced hesitation, he fastened the matching necklace and bracelet set Tamara had gifted him, marveling at how they caught the light like tiny stars around his wrist. The mirror gave him pause. What looked back was not a caricature, not a joke, but someone curiously polished, oddly poised. There was dignity in the illusion, which disturbed him more than if there hadn't been. Shauna entered the room just as he adjusted the final clasp on his heels. She smiled, softly, not mockingly, and leaned forward to spritz him with her finest perfume. "Now," she whispered, "you don't just look like a woman. You smell like one, too." Her voice didn't carry ridicule. Instead, it shimmered with intimacy. He didn't know how to answer, so he simply nodded. They had breakfast together in a quiet kind of calm, like two dancers who had finally found their rhythm, no matter how unconventional the choreography had become. Then, as she left for her job as an assistant buyer for a massive retail firm, he gathered his purse, yes, his, and stepped out the door, heels clicking against pavement, unsure whether the sound was that of submission or survival. Work for Marty was a private cocoon. He had a small office to himself, tucked away in a quiet building that hummed more with fluorescent lighting than human activity. The only other employee in the building was Sam, a mild-mannered man responsible for ordering supplies for the restaurant chain they both served. Sam rarely spoke to him, never dropped by his office. It made the transition easier. His legs ached from the heels by the time he made it to his desk, and he silently wondered how any woman could stand to wear them all day. But soon, he was lost in numbers, spreadsheets, audits. The soft precision of numbers a comfort far more reliable than the world of social perception. His mind became absorbed in reconciling discrepancies in one of the branch reports. Something didn't add up. One location's income was suspiciously low compared to its acquisitions. He double-checked his math. Then again. By the time the coffee machine buzzer rang, he had assembled a report and sent it to both his supervisor and the vice president of operations. He didn't think much of it. It was just what he did. Lunch took him to his favorite diner, a quiet, dependable place where he had ordered the same ham and cheese sandwich for years. The waitress didn't recognize him, not at all. Gone was the casual banter, the friendly eye rolls, the jokes she used to lob his way. When she brought his bill, she said, "Have a good day, ma'am," and wandered off. He sat in stunned silence for a moment, unsure whether to feel insulted or liberated. Returning to work, he found an email blinking in his inbox, a reply from the VP of Operations. The assistant manager at the suspicious branch had been caught stealing. They'd already confronted him. He'd confessed. The VP praised Marty's attention to detail and assured him a bonus would follow. Marty printed the email and tucked it away to show Shauna. He was still adjusting to the fact that no one, not even the VP, had commented on his appearance. That evening, Shauna arrived home 5 minutes after him, just like clockwork. The house smelled of pork steak, pineapple, and sweet herbs. He greeted her with a wide grin and handed her the printed email. Her eyes lit up, and without hesitation, she threw her arms around him and kissed him deeply. "You're my hero," she whispered. "My man caught a crook." He tried to downplay it, saying he had just noticed some irregularities, but she wouldn't have it. "The check proves it was because of you," she said firmly. Then he told her about the raise, a full 10%. She was ecstatic. That night, over dinner and soft laughter, they talked about how they might use the bonus. Marty wanted to save it, be prudent, plan for emergencies. Shauna, however, wanted to spend at least a little of it and maybe take a trip to that massive shopping mall up north. In the end, they compromised. Half would be saved. The rest they would spend together. That night, as they prepared for bed, Shauna handed him one of her nightgowns. "You might as well live like a woman," she said with a smile that didn't ask permission. He slipped into it, feeling the odd thrill of how the fabric teased the skin, the lightness of it, the smooth glide of silk over thighs. It was arousing, unexpectedly so. They crawled into bed, where the sensations became more than mental. She wrapped herself around him, kissed him, teased him, murmured about how, even in lace and satin, he was no less a man. Or maybe, in some strange way, more of one. When they made love that night, the boundary between gender and role, submission and power, all melted into nothing but touch, breath, and heartbeats. He fell asleep in her arms, the hem of his nightgown tangled around his thighs, the scent of her perfume still on his skin. By morning, Shauna was already up, sipping orange juice and humming with excitement about the shopping trip ahead. She paused only to touch up his eyeshadow, noting how it had started to fade. "I wish I had borrowed Tamara's makeup again. It lasts longer," she murmured. At 9 a.m., Marty left to deposit the bonus check. But as he drove, something pulled at him. An idea, impulsive but persistent. Instead of heading straight home, he veered off and drove to Tamara's house. When she opened the door, surprise flickered across her face, but quickly softened into something resembling warmth. He told her he wasn't there to clean. He needed a favor. "Shauna thinks my makeup's fading," he said. "Would you redo it? She really liked how it looked before." Tamara stood quiet for a moment, then motioned him inside. As she began applying foundation, she spoke softly. "I need to tell you something. I really love Shauna. She's my sister, and I'd do anything for her. I didn't want to hurt you. I just didn't want her to be hurt either. Every boyfriend I've had, they all had wandering eyes. I thought if I dressed you up, made you less of a man, maybe she'd be safe. I didn't know she already had you in panties. By the time I found out, I was already too far in to stop. But I was wrong. I see that now. You're the real deal. And I won't push this any further. I won't feminize you more. But I want you to know something. I'm glad she found you. I really am." Her voice cracked slightly. When she finished, he looked in the mirror. The makeup was flawless. Better than before. He stood up, unsure of what to say. Then, without planning it, he leaned in and kissed her cheek. "Thank you," he said, "for all of this. It made Shauna and I closer. I didn't understand it at first. I didn't like it. But I've realized some part of me needed this." Later that day, Shauna returned home with a mysterious white box in hand. "I have something for you," she said, eyes gleaming. Then she noticed the makeup. "Did you go to Tamara?" He nodded. "I wanted to make you happy." Her smile deepened. "Beth," she said gently, "you make me so glad when you do things like that." She led him to the bedroom and asked him to undress down to his panties and stockings. From the box, she revealed a pair of silicone breast forms. "These bounce and jiggle," she explained with excitement, "just like real ones." She carefully glued them to his chest. The weight was immediate, noticeable but not unbearable. When he stood up, they shifted and moved with each step. It was strange, yes, but undeniably real. They were ready to head to the mall. Shauna, radiant with joy, slipped her hand into his. "We're together," she said. "That's what matters. Whatever happens, as long as you're by my side, it's all going to be all right." The road unfurled beneath the car like a ribbon of anticipation as they headed north toward the sprawling mall. A glittering empire of glass storefronts and marble-tiled promises nestled in the city's wealthier outskirts. Shauna drove with a bright, contagious energy that filled the cabin, humming along with the radio, occasionally glancing over at Marty, no, Beth now, with a sideways smile of barely contained glee. Beside her, he sat dressed in the soft, powder-pink knit dress she had picked for the day, delicate embroidery of tiny flowers blooming across the front like whispers of spring. It clung gently to his frame, accentuating the subtle curves enhanced by the silicone breast forms and cinched waist, the white flats she'd chosen saving him from the torment of heels for the journey. The mirror on the visor still bore a faint smudge from when she'd touched up his lipstick before they left, and the scent of her perfume still lingered faintly on his wrist where she had kissed him that morning. Though part of him still felt the prickling edge of self-consciousness, a larger, quieter part had gone numb to the oddity of his transformation, not out of defeat, but adaptation. What had begun as a string of reluctant compromises now stretched like a second skin across his days, soft, feminine, even graceful. As he looked out the window, watching the trees blur into storefronts and parking lots, he found himself neither resisting nor fully embracing this strange new life. He was floating within it, carried forward by the current of Shauna's affection and Tamara's force of will, uncertain whether he was being pulled or led, but moving nonetheless. They arrived just before noon, the mall already pulsing with weekend life. Crowds flowed like tributaries through glimmering hallways. The air was filled with 1,000 overlapping sounds, ringtones, laughter, footsteps on polished floors, the soft thump of music from every storefront. Shauna took his hand the moment they stepped inside, not out of necessity, but desire. She wanted to walk with him, not just beside him, but connected, tethered. Her warmth steadied him. They moved first to a boutique she loved for its high-end nightwear. She practically glided across the floor, her fingers grazing hangers of silk and chiffon with the discernment of a connoisseur. She chose gowns for him with a look in her eye that was equal parts lover, stylist, and architect, designing something that transcended clothing, something symbolic. He let her. When she held up a delicate baby doll outfit in translucent crimson with black lace trim, her eyes sparkled. "You'll look divine in this," she said. It's not just for sleep. It's for feeling beautiful when no one else is watching. He couldn't bring himself to argue. The rhythm of the day became a dance. Store after store, aisle after aisle, Shauna leading, Beth following. When they reached the shoe section, she paused thoughtfully before asking if he preferred lower heels now that he had some experience. He admitted that his feet still ached in taller ones, so she chose a pair of sensible black and white low-heeled shoes. Still feminine, still unmistakably not his old life, but kinder. Then came the accessories. Bracelets, necklaces, and even an ankle bracelet she spotted with the name Beth engraved in delicate cursive. She fastened it to his leg right there on the bench in the middle of the mall, sealing it with a kiss and a promise of her affection. The gesture, so intimate and public, made something flutter inside him, vulnerability and thrill in equal measure, a kind of romance that defied category. But it didn't stop there. Beth found herself drawn to things he never would have glanced at before. A cheap jewelry kiosk offering free ear piercings with purchase caught Shauna's eye, and before he could hesitate, he had selected 6 pairs, 2 studs, 4 dangling, and sat calmly as the attendant pierced both ears, leaving twin pairs of studs that sparkled like tiny stars. Shauna watched him, her eyes dancing with awe and affection. She couldn't believe how naturally he was taking to it. Shopping for him had become more exciting than shopping for herself. She watched the way his eyes scanned displays, how his fingers brushed over fabrics now with curiosity, not resistance. He was changing, yes, but not breaking. In fact, she thought, he seemed to be unfolding into something more complex, more expressive. She wasn't sure what to make of it yet, but it made her love him more. The final stop was at a major department store, where they wandered through the women's section as if it were familiar terrain. He spotted a red clutch purse with a rhinestone clasp, bold, elegant, slightly audacious, and without prompting, picked it up and said, "I think I want this one." Shauna laughed, not mockingly, but with genuine delight. "Go ahead, Beth. Grab it." And he did. At checkout, they were just another couple. 2 women, perhaps, depending on the glance. No one stared. No one questioned. And as they walked out into the waning afternoon, Shauna was humming again, her hand looped around his arm, her eyes shining. "That was like shopping with a girlfriend," she said softly. "You really got into it." He nodded, eyes distant. "I don't know what happened," he admitted. "At first I was unsure. Then, I don't know, I saw the purse and had to have it. It made sense in the moment." Shauna squeezed his arm. "Don't worry, that's just being a girl sometimes, wanting something because it feels right." Back at home, as the city darkened into a glittering maze of lights beyond the window, they unpacked their haul and laid everything out. He tried on the pink baby doll gown that night, its sheer fabric wrapping around him like moonlight, and the moment it touched his skin, he felt the now familiar pull of arousal. Shauna noticed, of course. She always did. She made them hot chocolate and teased him gently. "Every time you put something soft on, you get hard," she observed. "Do you really enjoy this so much?" He hesitated. "I don't know," he confessed. "Maybe it's the feel of it. Maybe it's because I'm with you. I just know it stirs something I don't understand." She kissed him gently, her eyes filled with warmth. "Whatever it is, I love you more because of it. You've shown me something. Vulnerable and beautiful. I feel like I have not just a husband, but a girlfriend I can talk to, a best friend, a partner who'll go anywhere with me, even here." They fell asleep in each other's arms, the weight of the day softened by closeness and silk. And the next morning, as he dressed for work again, this time in one of Tamara's more elegant silk dresses, black with red floral patterns and streamers, he chose crimson heels and his favorite bracelet from the new set. Shauna watched him from the doorway, quietly smiling. She walked over, sprayed him again with perfume, and said, "You look like a woman who owns her world." He blushed. then smiled. "Is there anything else I need to know?" She shook her head. "Just be yourself. That's more than enough." At work, the heels no longer ached like they once had. He was adapting, his body adjusting in small, quiet ways. He dove into his bookkeeping with vigor, feeling more focused than he had in weeks. And just before noon, the quiet of his office was interrupted by a knock on the door. A man stepped in, confident, well-dressed, curious. "I'm looking for Marty Griffin," he said. Beth stood up. "That's me," he said without hesitation. "What can I help you with?" The man smiled and extended his hand. "I'm Schroeder Dunlap, president of the company. I came to deliver your bonus check and take you to lunch." Beth blinked, stunned. "Well," Dunlap added, "I expected a Marty with a Y, not an I, but here we are." Lunch was at the Hungry Bull, a steakhouse known for thick cuts and better whiskey. They were seated in a corner booth, hidden just enough to let the moment breathe. Dunlap talked about the company, about how shocked he was by the embezzlement, and how grateful he was that someone had caught it early. "We're covered by insurance," he explained. "But still, you saved us a mess. You're sharp, Marty, Beth. You've got an eye we can't afford to lose." They talked numbers, trends, projections. Marty pulled out some of his own metrics, spreadsheets he'd compiled to track subtle financial indicators. Dunlap was floored. "You need to send me this monthly," he said. "I had no idea we had someone like you in our ranks." They returned to the office, where Marty showed him everything. Charts, spreadsheets, comparative breakdowns of cost per plate, food waste patterns, historical metrics that no one else had bothered to notice. Dunlap spent 4 hours with him, completely absorbed. When he finally checked the time, he laughed. "I've been here all afternoon. This has been more useful than our last 3 board meetings." He handed over the envelope. 10% of what you saved us, and I've approved a 10% raise. You're too valuable. We won't risk losing you." When Marty opened the envelope later, he nearly fainted. Over $2,000. He closed his eyes, breathing through the rush of disbelief and joy. That night, as Shauna stepped through the door, he was waiting for her, the bonus check in hand. He told her everything about the lunch, the recognition, the raise. Her face lit up like sunrise. "My man caught a thief and got a raise." She beamed. "You're my hero. Again." She kissed him, climbed into his lap, laughing, hugging, whispering how proud she was. Over dinner, they dreamed aloud. Another shopping trip, maybe, or a weekend getaway. He said he wanted to save it. She said they should enjoy some of it. So they made a new deal. Half saved, half spent, a little luxury, a little safety, a new balance like everything else they'd been building. As they cleaned the dishes and stepped out into the evening for a walk hand in hand, Shauna marveled aloud at how unafraid he seemed now, how he walked in his dress through the neighborhood without flinching. "You're not hiding anymore," she said. "You're becoming." And maybe she was right. The night air wrapped itself around them like a silk scarf as they strolled through the neighborhood, hand in hand, the quiet rhythm of their footsteps mingling with the chirping of crickets and the gentle whisper of wind through the trees. Street lamps pooled soft gold across the pavement as if spotlighting each step they took. 2 figures bound not just by proximity, but by shared transformation. Marty, Beth, walked without shrinking, no longer checking windows for hidden eyes or quickening pace at the sound of distant voices. In place of hesitation, there now lived a sense of composure, a quiet defiance that looked a lot like grace. Shauna could feel the shift, too. She saw it in the way Beth's shoulders no longer curled inward, in how her hands no longer fidgeted nervously at her sides. There was a serenity forming, delicate but resilient, like a flower pushing through concrete. Neither of them spoke for a while, as if words might break whatever fragile alchemy the evening had conjured, but when they finally did, their voices were soft, dipped in reverence. I didn't think I could be this person, Beth said at last, her voice barely above a whisper. But I'm not pretending anymore. I don't know what I've become or what this means, but it feels real. Like I'm not running from anything. Shauna squeezed her hand, her thumb brushing softly across the top in a slow, rhythmic motion. You didn't become someone else, she said. You revealed someone who was always there. You trusted me enough to peel back everything the world told you to be. And now look at how much more you are. Beth stopped walking and turned to face her fully. Do you miss the old me? She asked. The man in jeans who didn't cry when he watched movies? Shauna smiled and touched Beth's face. I loved him, but I love you more. Not because of the clothes or the makeup or even the gentleness, but because you are brave in ways most people will never understand. You let love lead you, even when it asked everything. The following morning came wrapped in sunlight and the scent of waffles and vanilla. Beth was already in the kitchen when Shauna emerged, dressed in a navy blouse and beige slacks, ready for work but moving slowly, savoring the quiet. Beth had chosen a soft blue house dress with a ribbon at the collar and lace at the sleeves. Her hair, still a wig, was neatly brushed and pinned, and her apron matched the embroidered towels hanging by the sink. Breakfast was ready. Eggs, waffles, strawberries with cream. Shauna blinked at the sight and grinned. You're spoiling me, she said. Beth shook her head gently. I'm thanking you for holding space for me while I figured this out. They ate in peaceful silence, the kind that only grows between two people who have traveled through strangeness and come out more whole. At work, Beth's presence had become something of an open secret. People no longer whispered. Instead, they greeted her with a mix of respect and distance, unsure what rules to follow but unwilling to challenge the ones she'd rewritten simply by showing up day after day, unapologetically herself. Sam, the quiet man in supply orders, had even begun asking for fashion advice in his own awkward way. Do you match earrings to your shoes? He asked one day, clearly trying to understand a world that had suddenly become more complex than khakis and polos. Beth chuckled, flattered more than she expected. You can, but it's more about mood. Some days I want to match. Some days I want contrast. Sam nodded, as if taking mental notes for a report. Then came an unexpected twist, an email from Tamara. Subject line, an invitation. It was short, blunt, and direct, just like her. Dinner at my place Friday night. Bring Shauna, don't be late. Beth read it twice, unsure whether to be anxious or amused. She told Shauna that evening, and Shauna's eyes narrowed with a mix of intrigue and skepticism. It's probably her way of apologizing, she said, or showing off, or both. Beth shrugged. Maybe she just wants to see how we're doing. We haven't visited her since everything happened. And so they agreed, penciling it in with the same cautious optimism reserved for dental cleanings or family holidays, necessary but unpredictable. Friday arrived with a low breeze and golden skies. Shauna wore a sleeveless maroon dress with gold accents. Beth chose a flowing pale lavender number with a high neck and pearl buttons. Her hair was pinned up, and the new perfume Shauna had bought her, vanilla, cedar, a hint of citrus, clung to her skin like a whisper. They drove in silence, fingers laced, neither speaking until they pulled into Tamara's driveway. Whatever this is, Shauna said as she killed the engine, we face it together. Tamara greeted them at the door with an expression that was neither warm nor cold, just studied, as if she were trying to decode the variables of some complex emotional equation. She wore a simple black cocktail dress and greeted Shauna with a long hug before turning to Beth. You look incredible, she said, truly. I wasn't sure if this version of you would last, but now I see it's not a version. It's just you. Beth nodded, unsure what to say. She wasn't used to compliments from Tamara that weren't laced with irony or provocation. Dinner was surprisingly pleasant. Tamara had made salmon with lemon cream sauce, roasted potatoes, and a spring salad laced with citrus and pecans. Conversation flowed easily, childhood memories, movies, even a few jokes at their collective expense. But midway through dessert, Tamara cleared her throat and stood, holding her wine glass like it was a scepter. "I want to say something before this night ends," she began. "I've done some thinking, and I owe both of you an apology." Shauna raised an eyebrow. Beth froze. Tamara continued. "I pushed you, Beth. I cornered you into becoming something I thought would protect Shauna. I did it out of love, but it wasn't fair. It wasn't respectful. And yet, you transformed into someone far stronger than I ever imagined. Not just obedient or feminine, but whole. You became someone I admire, and I'm sorry for how it began, but I'm grateful for where it led." The room went silent for a long moment. Then Shauna rose and hugged her. "Thank you," she whispered. Later that night, as they lay in bed, Beth stared at the ceiling, her fingers curled in Shauna's. "I didn't expect her to say all that," she murmured. "Neither did I," Shauna admitted. "But maybe we all needed to grow a little, even Tamara." Then she rolled over and kissed Beth's forehead. "You're still my man," she whispered, "no matter how beautiful you look in a nightgown." Beth laughed. "And you're still the woman I'd follow through fire." They fell asleep like that, intertwined and exhausted, hearts finally beating in unison after months of strange detours. By Saturday, the house was quieter than it had been in weeks. No urgent errands, no dramatic surprises, no looming tasks. Beth slipped into a soft lilac robe and wandered into the kitchen to make tea. As it steeped, she caught her reflection in the dark window above the sink. Not just a flash of silk or painted lips, but a person. Someone she recognized. Not Marty pretending, not a joke in a dress, but Beth, still a little bewildered, still uncertain where all this would lead, but no longer ashamed. She turned away from the window and brought the tea to the bedroom, where Shauna was just waking. "You're amazing," Shauna said sleepily, wrapping her arms around Beth's waist. "And I'm lucky." Beth smiled. "We both are." Sunday morning arrived with the same gentle light that had become familiar, a soft golden haze that filtered through the bedroom curtains like a promise of peace. There was no alarm, no rush, only the slow, luxurious stretch of two people wrapped in the warmth of shared silence. Beth lay with her head resting against Shauna's shoulder, one arm lazily draped across her waist, the faint scent of vanilla and skin clinging to the air like memory. Outside, birds chirped their casual songs, and somewhere in the distance, a neighbor's sprinkler hissed to life. But inside the world had narrowed to one room, one bed, one breath shared between two souls who had stopped pretending there was a map for where they were headed. Shauna stirred gently and whispered into Beth's hair, "I never thought our love would take this shape. But it fits us so well, doesn't it?" Beth nodded without words, her heart too full for speech. The house seemed to exhale as they rose and moved through the morning rituals, not as husband and wife, but as partners who had unspooled all the old definitions and woven new ones from the threads they found in each other's hearts. Beth wore her lavender robe, hair slightly tousled from sleep, face still bearing the soft echo of yesterday's makeup. Shauna poured the coffee, humming a song neither of them knew, but both had heard 1,000 times in dreams. They didn't need to talk about what the day would hold. The rhythm was set. Breakfast on the patio, a long walk through the nearby park, perhaps dinner out at that new bistro Shauna had been eyeing. But under it all, like a current beneath calm waters, was something deeper. Today wasn't just another quiet Sunday. It marked something unspoken, a turning point, a quiet covenant of permanence. They dressed slowly, deliberately, savoring the act. Beth chose a flowing blue sundress with cap sleeves and a floral hem that kissed her knees with each step. Her breast forms sat perfectly within the lace-trimmed bra Shauna had hand-washed the night before, and the small gold heart necklace Tamara had gifted her now rested just above her collarbone like a vow. Shauna wore jeans and a loose white blouse with embroidered vines at the shoulder. Simple, effortless, lovely. Together, they looked like any couple out for a stroll, and when they reached the park hand in hand, no one stared. No one pointed. The world, once sharp and unforgiving, now seemed to bend around them with a strange grace. They found a bench beneath an oak tree where sunlight dappled across their laps like laughter. Children ran through the grass in bursts of motion. A dog barked. Somewhere nearby, someone played acoustic guitar, the chords drifting on the breeze. Beth leaned into Shauna's shoulder and said quietly, "I don't know what to call myself anymore. I feel like I'm in between, not the man I was, but not entirely something else either." Shauna kissed the top of her head. "You don't have to be one thing. You're Beth to me. That's enough." Beth closed her eyes. "I think I'll always be Beth now, even if I don't know exactly what that means." Shauna smiled. "You don't need to define it. You just need to live it." When they returned home, there was a package waiting at the door, brown paper tied with a silk ribbon, with Tamara's handwriting elegantly scrawled across the label. They brought it inside and opened it on the coffee table. Inside was a photo album. The first page held a picture of the three of them, Tamara, Shauna, and Beth, standing in the living room during that surreal dinner party, smiling in a way that was both uncertain and bold. Beneath it was a handwritten note. "Family isn't always comfortable, but it should always be honest. I'm proud of you both." Page after page held snapshots that Tamara had apparently taken without their knowing. Candid shots of Beth laughing in the kitchen, of Shauna fixing Beth's necklace before a night out, of both of them asleep on the couch, limbs tangled, utterly at peace. Beth traced the edges of one photograph with her finger, her throat tightening. "She sees us," she whispered, "for who we are." Shauna leaned over and rested her chin on Beth's shoulder. She always did. She just didn't know how to say it until now. The rest of the day passed like a soft exhale, and as evening crept in, Beth lit a candle in the bedroom and stood at the mirror, watching her reflection not with confusion or resistance, but with a slow kind of awe. She turned left, then right, studying the way the dress swayed, the way the necklace caught the flame's glow. She removed her wig and smoothed her natural hair, still short but growing, softening. She was learning how to live in this new body, how to carry both strength and softness without apology. Shauna entered behind her and wrapped her arms around Beth's waist, resting her chin on her shoulder. "Do you see what I see?" she asked. "What's that?" Beth replied. "A woman who discovered her truth in the most unexpected way and gave me the courage to rewrite my own." Beth turned and kissed her deeply, their breath mingling like poetry. They undressed each other slowly, reverently, not with the urgency of lust, but the tenderness of devotion. Each touch was an affirmation, a thank you, a promise. In the low light, with the candle flickering and their hearts laid bare, they made love with a depth that transcended bodies, names, even gender. It was raw and real and completely theirs. Afterwards, they lay in silence, legs entangled, skin sticky with sweat and affection. Shauna whispered, "Whatever comes next, I'm ready." Beth replied, "Me too, but I want to take it one moment at a time. No labels, just us." Over the next few weeks, their life found a new balance. Beth continued to go to work, dressing each morning with care and confidence. She began wearing her natural hair out more often, letting it curl just slightly at the ends, framing her face with something organic and free. The office adapted, pronouns slowly shifting, coworkers offering small signs of acceptance, even Sam complimenting her shoes one afternoon in a nervous mumble. The president, Dunlap, called her Beth without hesitation during a board meeting and offered her a project that would place her in a higher strategic role. She accepted. At home, Shauna encouraged her to explore everything: new clothes, new names, even new roles in the bedroom. But nothing was ever demanded. Everything was offered like a gift and accepted only when Beth was ready. One night, Tamara came over for dinner, this time with a bottle of expensive red wine and a story about her new girlfriend. "She's an artist," she said proudly. "Tougher than me, if you can believe that." Shauna laughed. Beth smiled. The three of them talked late into the evening, the kind of laughter that winds through decades and shared secrets echoing through the house. Before she left, Tamara hugged Beth tightly. "You're one of the bravest people I know," she said. "Not because you changed, but because you stayed." Beth held the hug a second longer than necessary, whispering, "Thank you for everything, even the hard parts." The seasons began to change again. Summer slipped into autumn, and the leaves began to blush with reds and golds. Beth began wearing scarves and tights, cardigans with delicate buttons, and boots that clicked gently down the sidewalk. She no longer flinched when strangers looked at her. She met their gaze. She walked taller. One crisp October afternoon, as she stood in the mirror adjusting her lipstick before meeting Shauna downtown for dinner, she smiled at her reflection and whispered aloud for the first time, "I'm beautiful." And for the first time, she believed it. Shauna met her on the sidewalk in front of the restaurant, stunning in a black dress and crimson heels. She opened her arms wide. "There you are, my Beth." Beth blushed. "I was afraid you'd be waiting long." Shauna shook her head. "You're worth waiting for, always." They went inside, took a table by the window, and talked over dinner about nothing and everything. Vacations they might take, books they wanted to read together, the possibility of adopting a cat. At one point, Beth looked around at the warm glow of the restaurant, the candlelight flickering on their table, the laughter of other diners mingling with soft piano music, and realized she wasn't hiding anymore. Not from herself, not from the world. The armor was gone, and in its place was something far more resilient: love, authenticity, and the unshakable strength of someone who had chosen to live truthfully. When they returned home that night, they sat on the porch wrapped in a single blanket, sipping warm cider and listening to the world breathe around them. Shauna rested her head on Beth's shoulder. "If you could go back," she asked softly, "would you change anything?" Beth shook her head slowly. "Only that I would have let go sooner. I wasted so much time fearing what was already part of me. But I don't regret the journey, because it brought me to you and to myself." And so, under a sky scattered with stars, two women sat together in a quiet house on an ordinary street, with extraordinary love growing quietly between them, rooted not in appearances or expectations, but in the raw, powerful beauty of becoming.